The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched high above the gathered delegates, its crystal walls catching the light from 7 different suns. Each species sat in their designated areas, maintaining the careful distances that kept peace between worlds that had fought for thousands of years. Commander HFY walked slowly to the center platform, his blue skin shimmering under the bright lights. As a member of the Villani race, he was tall and thin, with large eyes that could see far into the past through ancient texts and forgotten records. Today he carried with him a discovery that would shake everything the galaxy believed to be true. The other species watched him with mixed feelings. The Krulon delegates, massive beings that looked like walking tanks covered in thick armor, crossed their forearms and waited. Their general, Thrak, had no patience for old stories and dusty books. The Zephyrians, beautiful creatures made of what looked like living crystal, whispered among themselves in voices that sounded like wind chimes. They controlled most of the trade routes and cared only about profit. The smaller species huddled together in their corners. The Pixari, no bigger than human children, chittered nervously. The Gorvani, with their green scales and gentle nature, simply wanted everyone to get along. These peaceful races often suffered when the bigger powers fought over territory and resources. HFY activated the holographic display above his head. Ancient symbols and pictures filled the air, glowing with soft light. "Fellow beings of the Council," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber, "I bring you evidence of something that will change how we see our place in the galaxy." General Thrak's deep voice rumbled through his translator device. "More old stories, HFY? We have real problems to solve. Pirates attack our ships every day. Slave traders steal our people. We need action, not ancient fairy tales." The Villani commander's large eyes blinked slowly. "What if I told you that these fairy tales might explain why our problems exist? What if the solution has been watching us all along?" The hologram changed, showing star maps thousands of years old. Strange symbols marked certain systems and unfamiliar ship designs floated in the display. "These records speak of a race called humans. According to every piece of evidence I have found, they were the first species to achieve faster-than-light travel. This happened over 3,000 years ago, long before any of our civilizations reached the stars." Murmurs filled the chamber. The idea seemed impossible. The Krulon had been the first to master space travel, or so everyone believed. Their military might had built on that early advantage. The records described these humans as strange creatures. HFY continued. They were not the strongest or the fastest. They could not fly like the Zephyrians or see in the dark like the Krulon. They lived short lives compared to most of us, but they had something else, something the ancient texts call stubborn determination. A Zephyrian delegate, her crystal body reflecting rainbow colors, spoke with a voice like singing glass. "Even if such a race existed, where are they now?" "Successful species do not simply vanish," HFY nodded. "That is the mystery. The last reliable records of humans date back 3,000 years. After that, they seem to disappear from history. But here's what makes it interesting. Their disappearance matches exactly with the end of several galactic disasters." The hologram showed timeline charts. Major wars that had suddenly ended. Plague outbreaks that had mysteriously stopped. Entire criminal organizations that had vanished overnight, right around the time humans were last seen. "You're suggesting these mythical humans somehow solved problems that plagued the galaxy?" General Thrak's laugh was like rocks grinding together. "One small species against the combined might of criminals and diseases? Impossible." "The texts describe other unusual traits," HFY pressed on. "They speak of something called pack bonding. Humans apparently could form close friendships with any species they met. They would risk their lives for complete strangers. Most remarkably, they refused to abandon anyone, even their enemies. This caused more murmurs. Such behavior made no sense from a survival standpoint. Why would any species waste resources on those who could not help them?" Dr. Kira Seth, a young Villani researcher, stood up in the back of the chamber. Her voice was excited but nervous. "Commander HFY, I have been investigating the energy readings from the Outer Rim territories. The patterns match theoretical models based on those human artifacts. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew about the strange happenings in the Outer Rim, ships appearing and disappearing on sensors, technology that worked differently than anything they understood. What kind of patterns? Asked Elder Vashati, the oldest member of the Villani delegation. Kiriseth activated her own small hologram. For the past 6 months, we have recorded unusual energy signatures throughout the border systems. These readings appear just before pirate attacks mysteriously fail. Slave ships report system failures that free their prisoners. Criminal bases go dark with no explanation. She paused, looking around the chamber. The energy patterns are identical to the theoretical models we built from studying human artifacts. The technology signatures match perfectly. General Thrak stood up, his massive form towering over the other delegates. You're suggesting that these mythical humans are somehow responsible for disrupting criminal operations? That's ridiculous. My intelligence networks would have detected any new military force. Would they? Zexhai asked quietly. If the legends are true, humans were masters of what they called guerrilla warfare. They could strike without being seen, help without being noticed, and disappear before anyone knew they were there. The Pixari delegate Piptar squeaked in his tiny voice. If these humans help people, why hide? Why not join the council and work together? Zexhai looked at the small being with sad eyes. Perhaps because they tried that once. Perhaps they learned that committees and politics move too slowly when people are dying. A new voice cut through the chamber, harsh, mechanical, coming from the communication systems. Attention, Galactic Council. This is Admiral Lisa Carter of the United Nations Colonial Fleet. Every being in the chamber froze. The voice spoke. Perfect galactic standard, but the accent was unlike anything they had heard before. We are the descendants of those you call the mythical humans. We formally request an audience with the Galactic Council. We have much to discuss, and very little time to discuss it. The communication ended, leaving the chamber in complete silence. General Thrak was the first to speak, his voice barely a whisper. That's impossible. Humans are myths, stories. They don't exist. Commander Zexhai looked around at the stunned faces of the galaxy's most powerful beings. It appears, General, that myths sometimes come home. Outside the Great Hall, sensor arrays throughout Council space began detecting massive energy signatures. Ships were approaching, hundreds of them, using technology that surpassed anything the galaxy had ever seen. After 3,000 years of silence, humanity was about to reintroduce itself to a galaxy that had forgotten them. The legends were about to become very, very real. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UNS Liberty, watching the main screen show the approaching Council space station. After 3,000 years of hiding in the dark between galaxies, humanity was finally ready to step back into the light. The moment felt both historic and terrifying. Captain, all fleet commanders are reporting ready status, said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her position at the communications console. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as reports came in from across the massive human fleet. Operation Homecoming is green across all 7 battle groups. Jake nodded, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. 7 complete fleets hung in space around them, each one larger than anything the current galaxy had ever seen. Ships that had been built in secret shipyards floating in the void between star systems, using technology that had advanced far beyond what their ancestors possessed when they first left known space. Any word from Admiral Carter? Jake asked. She's aboard the flagship with the diplomatic team, Amy replied. Final preparations for first contact are underway. On the bridge of the UNS Defiance, Admiral Lisa Carter reviewed the first contact protocols one more time. Every detail had been planned and replanned over decades. Humanity had spent generations preparing for this moment, studying every species in the galaxy, learning their languages, understanding their cultures and their fears. Ma'am, we are receiving nervous chatter from Council Defense Forces, reported Commander Ryan Walsh. They're trying to figure out where we came from and how many ships we have. Lisa smiled grimly. Let them wonder. Fear will make them listen more carefully to what we have to say. Dr. Helen Price looked up from her research station. Admiral, I've been monitoring their news broadcasts. The reports about the criminal organizations we've been eliminating are causing panic in some sectors. The galaxy's black market economy is in complete collapse. Good, Lisa said simply. It was supposed to collapse. We've spent the last century systematically destroying every slave trading operation, every pirate fleet, and every criminal organization that preyed on innocent beings. The galaxy just never knew we were the ones doing it. 3 months earlier, Jake had been commanding a much smaller ship on what humans called a cleaning operation. His target had been a Krulon warlord named Vextok, who had been capturing and selling members of smaller species to work in dangerous mines. The operation had been simple and brutal. Jake's ship, invisible to their sensors due to advanced stealth technology, had appeared directly above Vextok's fortress. The human boarding teams had moved through the facility like ghosts, freeing over 2,000 prisoners and capturing detailed records of the entire slave trading network. Vextok himself had been left alive, but all his equipment had suffered. Mysterious technical failures. His ships would not start. His weapons would not fire. His communication systems played nothing but children's lullabies from Earth. By the time other criminals found him, he was sitting in his empty fortress, surrounded by the wreckage of his empire, crying from the strange music that somehow made him feel things he had never felt before. The freed prisoners had been returned to their home worlds with no explanation. Official reports blamed technical failures and internal fighting among the criminals. No one suspected that humanity was systematically cleaning up the galaxy's worst problems, while the Council held endless meetings about what to do. Back on the Liberty, Jake remembered the faces of those rescued prisoners. That was why humanity had stayed hidden for so long. The galaxy's governments were too slow, too political, too concerned with maintaining the balance of power to actually help people who were suffering. Someone had to do the dirty work while the politicians talked. "Captain, we're getting a priority transmission from Admiral Carter," Amy announced. Lisa's face appeared on the main screen, her expression serious. "All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Carter. In approximately 1 hour, I will be meeting with the Galactic Council. This will be humanity's first official contact with galactic civilization in 3,000 years. I want everyone to remember why we're here." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "We're not here to conquer or to rule. We're here because someone has to be. The galaxy is facing a threat that the Council doesn't even know exists yet. In 6 months, everything they know will be gone unless we can convince them to work together." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He knew about the devourers, the galaxy-eating creatures that existed in the space between galaxies. Humanity had been tracking them for 50 years, watching them consume entire star systems as they moved closer to populated space. On the Council station, emergency meetings were being held in every major delegation. The sudden appearance of hundreds of unknown ships had thrown the galaxy's most powerful beings into complete panic. General Thrak paced back and forth in the Krulon war room, his heavy footsteps making the floor shake. How did they get so close without being detected? Our sensor network should have seen them coming from light years away. His intelligence officer, a smaller Krulon named Bextar, checked his readings again. "Sir, the energy signatures are completely unknown. Their technology appears to be several generations ahead of anything we've seen." In the Zephyrian section, delegates argued in their musical voices about trade implications. If these humans controlled advanced technology, entire economic systems could change overnight. Commander Zexhai sat quietly in his research chamber, comparing the energy readings to his ancient texts. Everything matched perfectly. The legends had spoken of humans returning when the galaxy faced its greatest danger. If the myths were true about their disappearance and return, what else might be true? Dr. Kiraseth burst into his chamber, her eyes wide with excitement and fear. "Commander, I've been analyzing their ship configurations. The fleet out there isn't just big. It's designed for a specific type of warfare. These aren't exploration ships or trade vessels. They're built to fight something that requires massive firepower and unusual tactics." Zexhai looked at her carefully. What kind of something? I don't know, she admitted. But whatever they're preparing to fight, it must be incredibly dangerous. No species builds that many warships unless they're facing extinction. On the Liberty, Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez intercepted a dozen different communications from various council species. Everyone was trying to figure out who the humans were and what they wanted. Fear was spreading through the galaxy faster than news reports. Captain, should we respond to any of these requests for information? She asked. Jake shook his head. Let Admiral Carter handle the talking. Our job is to make sure they understand we're serious. As if to emphasize his point, the tactical display showed the human fleet moving into a defensive formation around the council station. Not threatening, but clearly protective. The message was clear. Humanity was back, they were powerful, and they were taking responsibility for galactic security, whether the council wanted them to or not. Admiral Carter's shuttle launched from the Defiance, heading for the council station. Behind her, 3,000 years of preparation was about to meet a galaxy that had forgotten humanity ever existed. The reunion would either save everyone or destroy everything they had worked to protect. The council chamber had been quickly changed to make room for the human visitors. Extra security guards stood at every entrance, though nobody was sure if they were there to protect the council from the humans or the humans from the council. The air felt thick with tension as delegates from across the galaxy waited for their first look at the mythical species. Admiral Lisa Carter walked through the main doors, followed by her team. Commander Ryan Walsh stayed close to her right side, his hand resting casually near his sidearm. Dr. Helen Price carried a datapad filled with information that would shock the galaxy. Behind them, diplomatic attaché Kevin Stone looked around the chamber with careful eyes, noting every exit and every potential threat. The humans looked surprisingly ordinary. They were about the same height as most species, with smooth skin and hair on their heads. They walked on 2 legs and had 2 arms, just like many other races. But there was something different about the way they moved, something that made even the massive Krulon generals feel uncomfortable. General Thrak was the first to speak, his voice booming through his translation device. You claim to be the mythical humans from the old stories. How do we know you're telling the truth? Anyone could make such claims. Dr. Price stepped forward and activated a small device. The air above the chamber filled with holographic images that made several delegates gasp in surprise. The display showed massive industrial complexes floating in empty space between star systems, entire planets that had been converted into shipyards and manufacturing centers. Cities built inside asteroids and hidden bases throughout the galaxy. We never disappeared, Admiral Carter said in a calm voice that somehow carried to every corner of the vast chamber. We simply learned that sometimes the best way to help is to work in the shadows. For 3,000 years we have been watching, learning, and cleaning up problems while you held meetings. The holographic display changed, showing detailed records of human operations throughout recent history. Every major criminal organization that had mysteriously collapsed in the past century had been eliminated by human forces. Pirate fleets that had vanished without a trace had been destroyed by human ships. Slave trading operations that had suffered convenient system failures had been sabotaged by human agents. Commander Ben Phillips, the human intelligence officer, stepped forward. His voice was quiet, but carried clearly through the chamber. We know about the Krulon breeding camps where you create soldiers from captured children. We know about the Zephyrian tax slavery system that keeps entire worlds in poverty. We know about the systematic genocide of smaller species that the Council ignores because they're not profitable trading partners. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several delegates jumped to their feet shouting denials and accusations. General Thrak's face turned dark with rage, while the Zephyrian representatives began arguing among themselves in their musical language. You dare accuse us of crimes? General Thrak roared. We maintain order in this galaxy. Without the Krulon military, chaos would consume everything. Admiral Carter waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. Order built on the suffering of innocence is not order. It's oppression. We have detailed records of every crime, every cover-up, every decision to ignore genocide because it was politically convenient. Dr. Price activated another series of images. These showed small species that had been driven to extinction, while the Council debated trade agreements, entire worlds that had been strip-mined to death, while politicians argued about environmental regulations, children sold into slavery, while bureaucrats filled out forms. This is why we stayed hidden, Admiral Carter continued. We learned that committees move too slowly when people are dying. We learned that politics matter more than lives to most of you. So we took matters into our own hands. Elder Vashti of the Villani spoke in her ancient creaky voice. If you have such power, why reveal yourselves now? Why not continue your shadow war against crime? The human admiral's expression became grim. Because patience has its limits. Because there is a threat coming that will end everything unless we work together. She nodded to Dr. Price, who activated a new holographic display. This one showed deep space far beyond the edge of the galaxy. Strange, organic-looking ships moved through the darkness like living creatures. They were massive, each one the size of a small moon. The Devourers, Admiral Carter said simply. The name hit the chamber like a physical blow. Several of the smaller species began making frightened noises. Even General Thrack stepped backward, his armor clattering. The Devourers are another myth, whispered a Zephyrian delegate, but her voice shook with fear. No, Dr. Price said firmly. They are very real. We have been tracking them for 50 years. They are biological ships that consume entire worlds to fuel their growth. They have destroyed 17 galaxies, leaving nothing but empty space behind them. The holographic display showed the path of destruction the Devourers had left across the universe. Galaxy after galaxy reduced to scattered dust and dead stars. Billions of worlds that had once supported life were gone forever. They are 6 months away from the edge of Council space, Admiral Carter announced. When they arrive, they will begin consuming every planet, every station, every living thing in this galaxy. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They simply eat everything and move on. Commander Walsh stepped forward with tactical displays showing the size of the approaching fleet. Intelligence estimates suggest over 10,000 individual Devourer ships. Each one is capable of consuming a planet in a matter of days. Conventional weapons have no effect on their bioarmor. The chamber fell completely silent. The idea was too terrible to fully understand. An enemy that could eat entire worlds, coming to destroy everything they had ever known. Piptar, the tiny Pixari delegate, squeaked in his small voice. How do you fight something like that? How do you stop creatures that eat planets? Admiral. Carter looked directly at the small being. You don't fight them with logic or conventional tactics. The Devourers are perfectly efficient, perfectly organized, perfectly logical. That's their weakness. They've never encountered something that doesn't make sense. Dr. Price brought up new tactical information. We've been studying Devourer behavior for decades. They adapt to any technology they encounter. Every weapon you use against them, they eventually learn to use against you, but there's one thing they can't adapt to. What? Asked Elder Vashati. Humanity, Admiral Carter replied. We are the one species in the universe that refuses to be logical when logic means giving up on people. We make decisions that no sane species would make. We sacrifice everything to save strangers. We fight battles we cannot win because someone has to try. She looked around the chamber at the frightened faces of the galaxy's most powerful beings. The Devourers have consumed 17 galaxies because every species they've encountered has eventually made the logical choice to surrender or flee. But humans don't make logical choices when people are dying. Commander Phillips activated one final display, showing the full scope of human military preparation. We have been building fleets and developing weapons for 50 years preparing for this moment. But we cannot win alone. We need every species, every ship, every warrior willing to stand and fight. Admiral Carter's voice carried absolute conviction. This is why we came back. Not to conquer you, but to save you. The myths were true. Humans return when the galaxy faces its darkest hour. That hour has come. The command ship UNS Defiance had become the center of the largest military gathering in galactic history. Fleet Admiral Tony Martinez, stood before a massive holographic table surrounded by leaders from every species in known space. For the first time in thousands of years, ancient enemies sat side by side, united by the terror of what was coming. The Devourer fleet had been detected at the edge of the galaxy 3 days ago. Long-range sensors showed the biomechanical ships moving steadily, inward, consuming everything in their path. Dead systems marked their progress like a trail of destruction across the star maps. Conventional weapons are useless, explained Colonel Lisa Murphy, pointing to tactical displays showing previous battles. The Devourers learn from every attack. Plasma cannons, particle beams, nuclear weapons. They adapt to everything within hours and turn the same technology against you. General Thrak, who had barely spoken since boarding the human ship, finally found his voice. Then how do we fight them? My people are warriors, but we cannot battle enemies that eat our weapons and grow stronger. Captain Danny Foster, a scarred veteran of humanity's secret wars, stepped forward. We don't fight them with weapons, General. We fight them with something they've never encountered before: complete insanity. The alien delegates looked confused. Several of the Zephyrians chimed nervously, their crystal bodies reflecting worried colors. How could insanity be a weapon? Doctor. Nancy Green activated a new holographic display showing detailed scans of captured Devourer biomatter. We've been studying them for decades. The Devourers are perfectly logical creatures. Every decision they make is based on efficiency and survival. They've never encountered a species that acts against its own interests. Admiral Carter moved to the center of the group. Every galaxy they've consumed has fallen the same way. When faced with impossible odds, the local species eventually make the logical choice. They surrender or flee to save themselves. But humans don't make logical choices when others are in danger. The plan was unlike anything the galaxy had ever attempted. While the combined fleets would engage the Devourer ships in conventional battle, human volunteers would pilot small ships directly into the biomechanical creatures. Not to destroy them with explosives, but to plant something far more dangerous. Commander Jake Morrison, now leading one of the suicide squadrons, explained the concept to his mixed crew of humans and volunteers from other species. We're not carrying bombs or viruses. We're carrying the most dangerous weapon humanity has ever created: human culture. In the cargo bay of his ship, sealed containers held music from Earth, literature from 1,000 human worlds, art that expressed joy and sorrow and hope. Most dangerous of all, they carried recordings of human emotions, parents singing to children, friends laughing together, lovers saying goodbye before battle. I don't understand, said Kixtel, a young Krulon who had volunteered for the mission. How can songs and stories hurt creatures that eat planets? Dr. Green had discovered the answer through months of careful research. The Devourers operate as a collective consciousness. They share thoughts instantly across their entire fleet. They've never experienced individual emotions or irrational decisions. Human culture is literally toxic to their neural networks. The first wave of Devourer ships entered the outer systems, and the galaxy's defenders moved to meet them. The battle was massive beyond anything in recorded history. Thousands of ships from dozens of species fought desperately against creatures that seemed impossible to kill. The Devourers adapted quickly to every tactic. Krulon battle formations that had won wars for centuries were copied and turned against them within minutes. Zephyrian energy weapons were absorbed and reflected back at double strength. Volani strategic computers were hacked and turned into weapons against their own fleets. But then the human boarding teams launched. Jake Morrison's ship, painted with children's drawings from human colonies, dove straight into the mouth of a Devourer bioship. His team moved through the organic corridors, not fighting the creature's defenses but planting speakers that began broadcasting human music. The effect was immediate and terrifying. The Devourer ship shuddered as unfamiliar electrical patterns flooded its neural networks. For the first time in millions of years, it experienced something other than hunger and logic. The haunting melody of an Earth lullaby caused confusion that spread through the bioship like poison. Other human teams planted different cultural artifacts throughout the Devourer fleet. Shakespeare's sonnets about love and loss caused several ships to stop attacking and simply drift in space, their crews experiencing emotions they had no way to understand. Beethoven's symphonies created such chaos in their communication networks that entire squadrons began fighting each other. The breakthrough came when Commander Amy Rodriguez's team successfully planted a recording of a human mother comforting her crying child. The sound spread through the Devourer collective consciousness like wildfire. For creatures that had never known individual care or personal sacrifice, the concept of a parent risking everything for offspring broke something fundamental in their minds. Devourer ships throughout the fleet began making impossible decisions. Some turned away from easy targets to protect damaged vessels. Others stopped consuming planets and instead tried to heal worlds they had already damaged. The perfectly logical collective that had destroyed 17 galaxies was being torn apart by human emotions. The final assault came when Jake Morrison's team reached the Central Devourer command ship. Instead of planting weapons or viruses, they did something no logical species would attempt. They broadcast a message of forgiveness and hope directly into the creature's brain. "We know you're hungry," Jake said, speaking directly to the massive, biomechanical intelligence that controlled the fleet. "We know you've been alone in the dark between galaxies for millions of years, but eating everything won't fill the emptiness inside you. Let us show you what it means to belong somewhere." The Devourer fleet stopped moving. For the first time in their existence, they felt something other than endless hunger. The human cultural contamination had given them emotions, and emotions made them realize how alone they had been. The end came not with explosions or battle cries, but with something unprecedented in galactic history. The Devourer fleet, experiencing love and compassion and the pain of understanding what they had destroyed, chose to sacrifice themselves rather than continue their purposeless consumption. One by one, the bioships turned their consumption inward, breaking down their own matter and scattering it into space to create new stars and planets. They chose to become creators instead of destroyers, to give life instead of taking it. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the last Devourer ship transform itself into a new solar system. Around her, representatives from every species in the galaxy stared in amazement at what they had witnessed. "This is why we came back," she said quietly. "This is why humans disappeared and then returned. We knew that someday, the galaxy would need someone crazy enough to love their enemies instead of destroying them." Elder Vashti, tears streaming down her ancient face, spoke for all of them. The myths were true. Humans are the species that refuses to give up on anyone, even creatures that tried to eat the universe. The galaxy was saved not by superior weapons or brilliant tactics, but by humanity's greatest strength, the refusal to hate, even in the face of absolute destruction. The legends had become reality, and reality had taught the universe what it truly meant to be alive.